Hello, everyone, and welcome to hour one of our 24 in 24 for Sam's Challenge. I'm Pei, and this is Christy, and we're here because every single conversation matters. So, right now, someone somewhere is sitting in silence with thoughts that are too heavy to carry alone. So, tonight and over the next 24 hours, we're going to prove that this doesn't have to be the case. So, for the next half hour or so, this space belongs to Christy and the story that she's going to share. But more than that, it belongs to all of us showing up for each other. So this entire 24 hour journey is raising vital funds and awareness for Samaritans. It's a charity that I volunteer for. It's an incredible organization that answers so many phone calls for people who are going through tough times and who might be feeling suicidal. And we understand what we're doing and what we're practicing right here, that being truly present, really listening can literally save lives. So whether you've been, whether you're going to be on the journey with me or you've just joined, you're part of something powerful and you're part of a community that says you're not alone. If you can, when I flash up the QR code, I hope that you will donate and you will, help us continue doing the good work. So let's create something amazing together. Let's be present, let's listen, and let's show the world what happens when we truly see each other as human beings. So, Christy, I am so grateful that you're here. Shall we dive in?
Absolutely, absolutely. Very happy to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself in your story?
Sure. I'm a native Texan and grew up in a terrific family with lots of support. My parents were kind and funny go getters. Um, they have been amazing through this journey, and I don't know how I would have made it without them. Um, I I think what happens when you get busy living, life happens to you, and the path that we set ourselves on is full of twists and turns. I found myself 8 months pregnant, 25 years old, and had a surprise visit. My first husband had been killed. Well, he was shot and was actually in the hospital um, on life support. So that took a little bit of a journey. I went into early labor, had my daughter, and I think I was so focused on being a new mom. Um, my parents helped me through that process. I raised her by myself for about 10 years. I remarried. That husband, at about the 4 year mark, was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. So we fought that battle for about a year and then he passed away. I met a really nice man in Maine 2 years later. I was in Texas and we decided to make Atlanta our fresh start new home. He was brilliant and lovely and smart and funny. And I had him for 5 years. And we were moving to Sweden, to Landskrona, Sweden, for his job. He was having a pain in his shoulder. We thought we should have that looked at before we headed overseas. And it turns out he had cholangiocarcinoma, which is cancer of the bile duct. So we fought that for a year and he lost that battle. So it was, each time was a different stage in my life. So my response was different because I was a different person. But there were certainly some threads that ran through it, support that came from surprising places, and support that didn't come from surprising places. I learned that I was a funny story. I had just picked up my husband's ashes and had them in the car, stopped at the grocery store. He had just gotten out of hospice or passed away when he was in hospice. And the pantry was empty. The refrigerator was empty. I went to the grocery store. I'm standing in line thinking, doesn't anybody see? Doesn't anybody hear? I'm hurting. He's just died and everybody around me is acting normal. And that was the moment of clarity. Um, Anybody around me could be going through anything, and we never know. And I thought, everybody needs kindness at all times because we never understand what anyone is experiencing at the moment. A kind word, a smile goes a long way. So that was my clear moment.
Oh wow. Um, Thank you for sharing that. I mean, being a mom and going through that must have been tough. Tell me about how you coped.
The first time, I think I was so young and I had my daughter to focus on. Everything happened around me, and I wasn't probably a cognizant participant as much as I could have been. I did realize I had sort of walled myself off from the world. I wasn't talking to friends. And one day my mom drove up and she said, "We're getting you out of the house. You haven't been out of the house in 2 weeks." She put me in the car with my daughter and drove us around the neighborhood for an hour. She said, "You need to see the sunshine." And I thought, okay, it's time. It's time to get out of the house and see the sunshine and start living again. So that was a really good moment. I think reading, listening to music again, it took me a while to get to the point where my typical pleasures, I didn't want to eat. Once I started walking back into the world again, I woke up.
Tell me about so as you know, I'm a volunteer for Samaritans, and I hear stories about grief and how it's different for everyone. Tell me about your grief and how did you feel? You know, was it the same? Was it different? How did it feel?
With my third husband, I think it was the most challenging because when he received the diagnosis, I knew what was coming. Sometimes your ignorance is helpful. um, Once you have a clear understanding, it's roll up your sleeves, dig in, do the hard work, and hope for the best. And it feels purposeful because you're busy and you've got something, you've got a goal, you've got a task, and you've got a day full of caretaking. At the moment of death, it's like a car going 100 miles an hour that hits a wall without brakes. And it's so lonely. And you go from being overwhelmed and busy to nothing. And um, the loneliness is overpowering and the lack of purpose. And that was the hardest part, was having to figure out what my purpose was going to be again. So um, that overwhelming loneliness and lack of purpose took a long time to work through. And the other challenge I think with grief is after a week or two, people move on with their lives and you don't hear from them anymore. They don't call or text or drop by, or they're moved on, and that's how life works, which is great, except when you're the one that's just sort of left in your wallowing in your self-pity. Where do I go? What do I do? So it's picking up the pieces and figuring out who you are again. It's finding what your new normal is.
How might someone support a friend who's grieving, going through, the things that you've gone through? What are the kind of things that you think would be most helpful? Or thinking about, thinking back to your experience, what what do you wish other people might have done more for you, or anything that could have helped?
That's a great question. I think after that sort of 2 week mark where everybody goes back to life, simple text messages at night Just wanted to tell you I was thinking about you in the morning. You're on my mind. And not open ended questions. I think you can't make good decisions or you don't want to burden. I felt I didn't want to burden anyone. Someone saying, are you busy on Tuesday? How about 10 o'clock? Let's go get coffee. I'll come pick you up. Or the flowers are blooming at the botanical garden. You want to take a walk with me? Those, I'm going to run errands. Is there some errand I can run for you? And maybe we can have a chat. Those sort of closed ended instead of really broad, where it's easy to say, I'm fine, but where you're engaged and don't have to make a choice. I think that those are the most helpful.
So do you think it's more helpful than someone saying, let me know if you need anything? Is that what you mean? So that's like really open ended.
Exactly, exactly. Let me know if you need anything is too broad when you can't put two thoughts together. So, making a suggestion is, I think, helpful. And offering yourself, just a few minutes, 15 minutes makes all the difference to sort of reconnect with someone and have a hug, a conversation, and not feel so alone again.
Thank you. We have lovely Todd Halfpenny. He is in the UK, so he stayed up for this one. He's asked, um, may I ask for tips on feeling guilty for not feeling how you should be feeling?
That's a great question. I think everyone should give themselves grace. I don't think there's a roadmap and there's should not be an expectation. However you feel is how you feel, and I think that's fine. I found periods of joy, I'm happy. Should I be guilty? No, I'm having a great day. This is a good feeling. I want to feel that, and I don't know that there's a right or wrong to how your feelings are your feelings, and they're valid. Um, that my personal perspective.
Um, from from what I understand is, um, even though there's a like the 5 stages of grief and all those like frameworks and all those things that are out there, I think it feels like a lot of people get confused when they don't feel what they're supposed to be feeling. Like, should I be crying? Should I be sad? And I think relationships are complicated for many people, and therefore emotions are complicated as well. So, what would be helpful for someone to support you if you're not grieving in the way other people expect? Have you come across that situation?
Sure, absolutely. I think everybody processes grief differently and processes their emotions differently based on everything that happened from childhood through whatever stage you are in life. Um, Hormones affect it too. We're also hormone driven, and I'm postmenopausal, and I'm completely different than I was in my 20s. How this exact same thing would affect me. So I think we've got to give ourselves grace and taking a deep breath. And sometimes there were people I couldn't be around because they wanted sadness. They want that emotional um, moment.
Okay.
And when you're in a good place and you're not feeling that, it's um, it's sort of a pull down from when you're starting to recover. So, gosh, that's complicated. That is very complicated.
How do you manage those relationships with, friends and people who have certain expectations of how you should be, how you should feel, where you should be on your journey? Like, it's been a while now. I people tell me, it's been a while now. Shouldn't Shouldn't you have got over this?
That's and that is another tough thing that we deal with unexpectedly. Some people I couldn't have relationships with for long stretches of time. And I think that's okay too. If you're having a moment, you know those people that will be kind and supportive, and you know those people maybe if you're having a difficult day to avoid. And I think that's okay too. I think that's practicing good self-care.
No, that's really true. You talked about needing the time to do the work through each of the. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean?
Sure, I needed to figure how I was going to move forward because my life plan was with, especially with my last husband, my life plan was with him. And how did I navigate the world without him? So I had to reconfigure my expectations of myself and my retirement, my all of my relationships. And part of the work was journaling. I wrote my feelings down whenever I always had a pen and paper. And I still do. I carry a little flip steno pad with me everywhere I go. And when I something pops into my head, I write it down and put it to the side and address it when I'm emotionally ready. And I still do that when I have tough days. When I strangle somebody, and it's very helpful. I can go back and when I'm not emotional, and um, but working through those steps, I was disappointed. I was angry. The thoughts of really cancer again, seriously. Um, so I had to come to terms with what you can manage, which is a lot, and resilience, and it, it, not blaming him, not blaming me. It wasn't anyone's fault. It just is part of the process of life. And then having to figure out how do you love again? How do you open up and have a relationship again? What's that expectation look like?
Tell me about that because I think anyone listening in would say having lost a life partner once would shake me twice, So just talk me through your thoughts and your feelings and that particular journey on the love side of things.
Dating again is interesting. I think sometimes people say things because they don't know what to say. And where do you tell somebody in the dating journey? Is that a date one or a date three? And if you tell them too early, they say that's too much too early. And if you wait too late, that's like, you should have told me that in the beginning. Or the Black Widow, like any of that was my fault. I was a supportive partner through people with, terminal illness. How is that my fault? So that was always an interesting navigation. That comment was first. That was a no future dates killer comment.
For sure.
But I also have to take a step back and say sometimes people are uncomfortable with death and aren't don't know. A joke is easier than dealing with how they feel about it. So I also try and forgive that way. So
Thank you.
yeah.
Oh, we have a question from Christian. Benjamin, did you always go through the 5 stages, or was it in different order? Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance.
That's a great question. Oh yeah, that's a great question. It wasn't the same. It never followed a pattern. Um, Sometimes several were bundled together in one basket, and the anger sometimes was the first thing. especially the last time. It's just, yeah, that's a great question. And sometimes the last time I think I was angry, and then we accepted. We had our grieving and our mourning together, and then we got into business mode, right? We got down to business. This is what we've got to do to give you a chance to survive. And then there was sort of another grieving. The diagnosis was one set of grief stages, and then the death was another set of grief stages. So yeah, that's a good question. No, it didn't follow any particular pattern.
Mm. It must be tough when someone is expecting it and you're not, kind of. Tell me about finding joy.
Finding joy. I will say I find joy in the simplest things now. I look for it everywhere intentionally. In When the flowers bloom, I'm always the first at the botanical gardens when they open. When the sun rises, when the sun sets, and the cloud patterns are so beautiful. Um, when somebody's got a brand new grandchild, my friends are all having their first grandbabies. We celebrate those. I really celebrate those moments. Seeing my mom get a year older, watching my daughter grow. Live music has always been a place of joy for me. So I make sure that the things that make me happy, I appreciate. Waking up every day is a joyful moment because, hey, I got another chance, right?
What would you what would you what would you advise someone who is going through what you were going through before, so a terminal diagnosis and what comes next?
Be kind to yourself, give yourself grace, take care of yourself. It's really, really easy when you're caring for someone with a terminal illness to give yourself completely over to it, and then you don't have anything left. And I always go back to the airline um, instructions where you mom, put the mask on yourself and then take care of your kid. Because if you don't have anything to, you've got to be present. So it's hard. It's really hard. Get up from the hospital room and take a walk around the corridor every every hour. Get out for 5 or 10 minutes. Try and go outside. It's easy to get when you're stuck for weeks in a hospital. It's really easy just to be stuck and go and get some sunshine and some fresh air. Um, Call the people and lean on them. People want to help and they don't know how, so let them help. And that's a really hard lesson. It's a really hard lesson.
You had a child in your first with your first husband. How how did they process their grief?
That's the hardest part. That's the hardest part. Um, as a parent, you want to protect them. So watching her as I've navigated relationships and death, she had a hard time. And I think still probably carries some of that with her, wanting to protect me and not able to. She developed some chronic illnesses, and because of the stress, it happened right as she was going through puberty. And my second husband died the Friday before she started high school on Monday. So it was a cascade of
Mm.
chaos in her life that I tried to keep as calm as possible, but it's hard to be both things, a mom and a full-time caretaker. So for me, that's the worst part of all of this journey. And my parents, oh, my poor parents, I feel so bad. You don't want to see your kid go through something, and trying to protect them from my grief while they want to take care of me and protect me from life. Um, I always felt bad. And my dad dealt with it with humor and great hugs and kindness. And my mom just a, go for it, get it done. You've got it, girl attitude. So I had really lovely perspectives that were very different and amazing from my parents. So it was good.
What I'm hearing from your story is that even though there's so much sadness, but there's so much love as well, from the fact that your heart is so big that you could take on even after, your first husband, just your heart's just so big. I've met you once and I felt it. And you telling me about now your parents, how they have been for you, and how you are for them and for your daughter and for your husbands. It's so amazing.
It's very kind of you. We all of us deal with grief. We all deal with loss. It's We lose our parents, we lose our pets, all everybody deals with grief. And I think coming through to the other side with an appreciation for continuing to be here and an appreciation for those people that we love so much is helpful in processing what has been and looking forward to what can be.
What would you say to someone who's finding it very difficult to move forward?
It does get better. Being kind to yourself, and oh, it's so hard. Feel the hard emotions. And for me, writing was so helpful. Sometimes when I couldn't say it out loud or couldn't say it to somebody else, I could write it. Pen and paper keep secrets. And it's a safe zone. And at 3 in the morning, who do you want to call? But you can talk to yourself. Um, Being patient with the process, I think, is also helpful. Having good days and knowing that the bad days become fewer and the good days become greater. Uh, yeah, being patient with yourself, I think, is the big takeaway for me.
You said to feel the feelings. I think that sounds like a really hard thing that a lot of people, you know, because death is just something that's so painful, especially if it's somebody that you love and care so deeply for. Um, and to to what I'm trying to say is that I think a lot of people would try to avoid it, to be busy, to find, you were talking about finding a purpose, for example. So I can see a lot of people using that purpose to give themselves the perception of moving forward, but not allowing them to feel the feelings, as you say, or working through and doing the hard work. So,
That's a good point. And I think therapy is wonderful. Having a professional perspective to help through. I think sometimes medication can be very helpful. None of that. There should be no shame to getting professional help. Um, there are some really good resources. Having Samaritans to call 24 hours a day is a resource. A couple of times I wish I had had. There are things that you don't maybe want to tell your parents, or burden your best friend with, or certainly your child. So maybe a third party that isn't a part of your inner circle might be a really good place to let yourself unburden some of those feelings and have a safe space to feel them.
Thank you so much, Christy. I think we're kind of running out of time, but just to kind of wrap up, um, oh, we've got a comment, sorry, from Jermaine. Um, and they say pen and paper keep secret, though sometimes I want to share their secrets, like a kind of community of practice where people share eulogies and memories of loved ones. What do you think about that?
I love that. I absolutely love that. Those special moments that we had with people to be able to share them. It's an honor to keep those memories alive. I love that idea.
Just very quickly before we move on, one of the things that people tell me, I don't want to ask my friend too many questions. She's lost someone close because I don't want them to feel sad, and so they kind of like um, tiptoe around you. So, what? Tell me how you feel. Do you want people to ask you to talk about your loss, or do you just help these people out who are? So I'm open to asking questions, and I can take directions as to, okay, let's not go there. But a lot of people don't know. What would you advise them?
That's a great question. And you asking on one day it may be fine and another day it may not be. I would say if you position it as I'm here to listen, I judgment free. Whatever you want to talk about, you lead. And if you don't want to talk about anything, I'll sit here next to you.
I love that so much. That's kind of what we do at Sam's, although we don't physically sit next to our callers. Um, so there is a comment by Margot. So here's what she says. Because I don't think you can see the messages that I can see. So she says, you're so brave. She's going to be on later on. I think, yeah, Margot is going to be on today with me at some point. Um,
I look forward to that. I
yeah.
can see them. I can see the messages too.
Okay. Oh, can you? Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
And Todd says, thank you for that. So just very quickly before we wrap up, um, three takeaways for our audience who might be listening in. What are three things? You've said quite a few of them already, but I think the first one was have grace with yourself. Yes. Um,
Have grace with yourself. Um, have grace with yourself. Enjoy enjoy your life. Enjoy the each day, and be patient with other people. They do the best they can, even though sometimes they stumble. I think kindness goes a long way.
Thank you so very much for your time, Christy. I really appreciate it. And before we close, I'm just going to. I don't know if this will come out. Actually, let's. Mm, yes, it's come out. Thank you, everyone, for listening and for asking such amazing questions. Um, for Christy to share her journey and her thoughts with us. Very glad to have the audience here, and very glad to have had you, Christy, here. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Congratulations. I'm so proud of you.
Oh, you too, by the way. I loved your updates on your job and everything. Right. Thank you, everyone. My next session is going to be on in 25 minutes. So